Free agent wide receiver Josh Reynolds has a visit with the Baltimore Ravens today. Could he sign and add some much-needed depth to the Ravens wide receiver core? Welcome into this edition of a Ravens Rundown. I am merely Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. We will dive in to everything you need to know on the possibility of signing Reynolds. Also, what does that mean for Michael Gallup, who visited with Baltimore yesterday? We'll explain it all coming up on today's show. Before we do, we're getting closer and closer to 16,000 subscribers here on the channel. We are just less than 125 away from reaching that next milestone. If either Reynolds or Gallup sign, one of the two, we're going to bring you a video and break it down here on the channel and talk about it. For the latest happenings on your favorite team all off-season long, subscribe now to Ravens Rundown for free. Doesn't cost you a thing. We're talking draft, trade rumors, free agency, and more here on the channel. Subscribe now, youtube.com/RavensTV. You'll be glad you did. According to reports, the Ravens are set to visit with Josh Reynolds in Baltimore today and discuss the possibility of signing him. This was an idea that we had talked about just a few weeks ago, and ESPN's Adam Schefter confirmed this news yesterday afternoon that he was on the way to Baltimore to meet with the Ravens for a free agency visit. And Reynolds, one of the best receivers left on the free agent market at this point in time. I look at Josh Reynolds, and he's not a bad option. But what I would also say, too, something to think about, as we look at this Ravens team and trying to get more receiver help with OBJ gone and where they go from here. Zay Flowers is the only wide receiver under contract for the Baltimore Ravens in 2025. So if you sign Josh Reynolds or Michael Gallup, or whoever for that matter, that still shouldn't stop you from drafting a young receiver to develop as well with a day one or day two selection in next April's draft. More on Josh Reynolds. He's been a journeyman of sorts. We've seen him most recently with the Detroit Lions, had a nice season this past year with Jared Goff and that Lions team as they went to the National Football Conference Championship game. And he played with Tennessee prior to that and the LA Rams. He's had 6 straight seasons with at least 300 yards receiving. Last year, you talk about durability, played in all 17 games with 13 starts, and you can see it was the best season that he's had in a while with 608 receiving yards, over 15 yards of reception, 5 touchdowns, and 40 catches in 2023. So, let's discuss. What do you think about the idea of signing Josh Reynolds? Y for yes, N for no. Weigh in the comment section. Tell me what you think on our pinned comment today if the Ravens should sign Reynolds or not. So here is the Ravens receiving core right now as things stand. Zay Flowers is back off of a terrific rookie campaign in 2023. Rashad Bateman is in a contract year, and there's a lot of optimism among the Ravens organization when you hear from Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh of what they've been saying about Rashad Bateman, that they think he's going to have a breakout season in 2024. Nelson Agholor is back on a one-year deal after a surprisingly strong campaign last year, and they're looking for more of the same from Agholor this year. And then there's Tylan Wallace, and Tylan Wallace was a college star at Oklahoma State. We've seen him have an impact on special teams at times. He's got potential, but never really tapped into the full potential of what Tylan Wallace could potentially be. I'll say this. That is not going to be your receiving room when the football season begins for the Baltimore Ravens. Help is on the way. Now, what does it look like? That remains to be seen of what exactly they do. But my guess is that they sign either Reynolds or Gallup, and then they also draft within the first 2 days another receiver as well. Now, given the choice between Gallup or Reynolds, I wouldn't mind either guy. If you make me choose, if I get to be Eric DeCosta here, I'm going with Michael Gallup. And the reason why, I know that Reynolds had the better season this past year compared to Gallup, but if all things are created equal here, I think Gallup's got the potential for the higher upside here. If you told me which guy is more likely to have a 1,000-yard season in 2024, it's Michael Gallup without question. you look at who he was prior to that ACL tear back in 2021, he was on the up and up. He was trending upward, had that upward trajectory going for him. And then after he came back, his role was greatly reduced with the impact of how well CeeDee Lamb came along and turned into one of the best receivers in all of the National Football League. So for me, you get Michael Gallup away from that Dallas Cowboys offense and give him a more significant role in Baltimore, I would feel pretty good that Michael Gallup has a higher ceiling compared to Josh Reynolds. I would take either one, especially with the position the Baltimore Ravens are in, but I think Gallup has slightly more upside potentially than Josh Reynolds does. Which one would you rather sign between these two free agency visits? Josh Reynolds or Michael Gallup? Type J for Josh Reynolds. Type M for Michael Gallup. Let us know which receiver you'd rather go with in the comment section below for your Baltimore Ravens to sign. Now, one thing that I think is very important to note when looking at this receiver situation for the Baltimore Ravens is that if we go back in time, if we took a ride on the hot tub time machine a couple years ago to the receiving room in Baltimore, it was a mess, right? And Eric DeCosta caught a lot of flack, and rightfully so, honestly, for the job he did evaluating the receiver position and the players that they brought in to play receiver. It was just a dumpster fire, right? And now we fast forward to 2 years later after the Hollywood Brown trade, and you look at this group and say Flowers looks to be the right guy. OBJ, maybe it didn't necessarily work out like the way you wanted to, but he was still a lot better than some of the receivers we saw in the field previously. And Nelson Aguilar turned out to be a good value signing. I am optimistic. I am feeling very good about the renewed investment made in the receiver position by the Baltimore Ravens staff of knowing that, hey, you're probably going to get Reynolds and Aguilar, or not Aguilar, you're going to get Reynolds and Gallup here, in addition to what you already have, and you're probably going to draft somebody as well. That is a great sign heading in the right direction, especially with what Todd Monken wants to do in the passing game with this offense. Tim Ham of SI Raven Country mentioned this just actually a while back about the idea of bringing Josh Reynolds to Baltimore, and this is what he had to say. Detroit Lions, Josh Reynolds could be one of the cheaper options as Spotrac projects Reynolds signing a 2-year, $14 million deal in free agency. That's very doable for Baltimore, by the way. The Texas A&M Aggies product, that's a Colt, by the way, caught 40 balls for 608 yards and 4 touchdowns last year in a career season in Detroit, where Reynolds has spent the last 2+ seasons. His success in the explosive Lions offense should translate well in Baltimore, where the offense should be well-balanced and equally explosive in offensive coordinator Todd Monken's second year with the club. So we'll see what the Ravens do. I think it's going to be one of these two guys. Who knows? We might even find out by the end of the day and have an answer for you. If they do, then we're going to talk about it and bring you a video here on the channel. Subscribe now for the latest happenings on your favorite team. We got you covered. We'll see you next time here on Ravens Rundown.